Ford Motor Company is real proud of the F-150. In fact, they say it's built Ford tough. The good news is they're willing to prove it. Unlike its competition, when they say want to do a comparison, they're talking about pulling trucks apart. Part for part, bolt for bolt, panel for panel. We're going under the skin on the Chevrolet Silverado and the Toyota Tundra. And when this party's over, the competition's not going to be smiling. I call this test a lie detector. I love these. A head-to-head comparison so you can see who's really telling the truth. Now, I understand that everybody builds a great brochure, but not everybody builds the best truck. On my right is the frame out from underneath the all-new Toyota Tundra, Toyota's first attempt at building a full-size pickup truck. On my left, the truck leader, the Ford F-150. These frames are critical. They are the backbone of the vehicle, and they are a great place for some manufacturers to remove or save a lot of money. Unfortunately for you, that isn't good news. Let's look at these two frames, and let's see how they stack up together. Right up front, this is the suspension pickup point for the front end. It's critical to the long-term durability, handling, and obviously ride quality of the vehicle. And at first blush, that looks like a pretty strong structure. The spring sits in here, the upper control arm sits here. Looks pretty big until you see how the leader does it. A monstrous front structure for the spring and control arms, and notice the control arms are actually gusseted, so a bolt travels all the way through and is fully supported. Even the method of manufacturing the frame can have a big difference in what it costs the manufacturer. By going hydroforming, making sure that the frame is actually formed with a liquid, stays stronger and is not welded together, as opposed to taking two pieces, mandrel bending them and welding them, big cost savings, stronger frame. Maybe that played an influence on the fact that, well, the F-150 got both passenger and driver front 5-star rating. Toyota, driver and passenger, 4-star. That probably played a role. How you mount the body sounds trite, but think about it. Do you really want to drive a truck that squeaks and rattles, has a cab moving around, has the doors walking around? I don't think so. Toyota, 4 body mounts. Saves the money of not adding 2 more. Ford, 6 body mounts to put that body solidly on the frame. Cross members. Now, this is unglamorous stuff, but this is critical to what you get in terms of value. Notice the size of this big, beefy, fully enclosed cross member. And note, it comes through the frame rail and is welded on both sides. So too is this one and the one that follows. Toyota, different approach. And this was all the rage 10, 15 years ago. An open cross member, stamped piece, riveted in place. Not all the way through the frame, on the back side only. And again, with that cross member, and that cross member. And a couple of interesting points here. A lot of effort went into naming this thing, so I guess it would sing in the brochure, but what did you really gain? They call it triple tech. I guess because they're using, well, about 3 different methods to actually build the frame. I don't really know their logic, but it has a couple of inherent drawbacks right out the front. It's not nearly as strong. Oh, and this is cool. It actually traps road dirt and salt right in its own frame rails. I don't know what you call the counter to rust prevention, but apparently they can't wait to sell it to you. Now, let's look at the real strength and how it, in the end, affects the vehicle total overall. Chad, Dave, I'm going to get you guys on out here. I'm going to go ahead and remove one of the legs of support. Both these frames are at level. I'm going to pull one leg of support out, and let's just see how much the frames sag on their own weight in what we call torsional stiffness. Thank you, guys. As you can see, this long lever drops quite a ways on the Ford F-150. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. As you can see, a very small drop, despite the fact this is a heavier frame, albeit a lot stronger. But let's go more real world. Let's really take this lie detector and apply it to how you use the vehicle every day. Here's what I'm talking about. We added 270 pounds of load on a very long lever arm. I'm not going to kid you. A fair amount of load, to be fair. Let's see what it does, and we'll measure it in thousandths of an inch. We'll go to a drop. Jack is clear, less than an inch, really closer to 3/4 of an inch of total twist deflection as measured right here at this point. Okay, let's do the same thing to the Toyota. 270 pounds. We'll drop the frame on down. Again, measured at this exact point, almost 3.5 inches of deflection. Now think about this for a second. Do you really want to drive a vehicle that this could be happening 1,000 times every time you drove the vehicle? Does that add or enhance to the long-term durability of the vehicle? I don't think so. If you can imagine this, in the brochure it says, this is the truck that's changing it all. Really. If you don't mind, I'll take the frame from underneath the truck that's been leading it all for 30 years. You know, in all of truckdom, there is no more unsung hero or least glamorous job than that of being a suspension component. Yet these unsung heroes do such a great job of how a truck feels, holds up, and handles. So the execution of engineering and investment here is critical. Let me give you an example. This is the upper control arm. This is what we call the hub carrier or upright. Now this is a big beefy piece that actually keeps the wheel, tire, brake, and caliper attached to the vehicle. Give you an idea, you remove it off the F-150, here's what it looks like. Now in direct comparison, Chevrolet comes out with an all-new Silverado and had a real opportunity to catch up in terms of total design. As you can see, they chose not to. You know, it's a subtle thing, but it hides behind the wheel and you don't see it. You can see the difference in durability potential just in looking at the size of fit. Now, based at the bottom of this thing is what they call the lower control arm, and this thing works hard for a living. This is where all the bump and road shock comes into the vehicle, noise as well. So in terms of built forward tough, you want to engineer this from a couple of key perspectives. You want it strong, yet you want it light, because light lowers the unsprung weight and improves the handling of the vehicle. So Ford uses this. It's actually a forged aluminum piece. This thing is critical to how come this truck feels so good. Now, this thing does a great job because it's aluminum of eating road noise. It's also lower in unsprung weight, so it improves handling, and you can tell by its size and density, this thing is durable. To give you an idea, here's what Chevrolet went with. Got to tell you, very, very heavy, so huge in unsprung weight. As you can see, there's no mass to it in terms of density, so it can't eat near the amount of road frequency or road noise. It's a subtlety of detail that, quite frankly, a lot of F-150 owners appreciate and don't even know why it's happening. Now, as it turns out, these components are no less critical at the rear as well. So let's go take a look. Well, if we talk about unsung heroes, it doesn't get any more unglamorous than being the rear suspension. Just really kind of a shame because I don't think it gets its due. This is really critical componentry, and it can play such a large role in the stability, handling, and frankly, the load capabilities of the truck. Give you an idea, the Ford F-150 for 07 will tow 11,000 pounds. Think about that as a driver. You want to be in control of that kind of mass, and to do it, the suspension's one of the key players. Now in the rear, we use a thing called a leaf spring. These are really very effective at load variables, light cargo, big trailer mass. These springs do very good at adjusting those different weights. But they've got another key role. Remember, they are the connecting link for the rear end, the rear axle, the brakes, wheels, and tires. There's a lot of leverage back here, particularly when you add a trailer. You don't want this area moving around. That's called rear steer, and it would make a vehicle very unstable. So to stabilize it and to make certain it stays well and solid, guess what they do? At Ford, they build the leaf springs 3 inches wide. GM chooses to go with 2.5 inches. It's not a monstrous difference until you go to compare the percentages. Remember, it occurs on both sides. To control this monstrous spring, well, guess what? Ford brings its shock absorbers outboard. It actually helps a bit in roll control, stabilizes the vehicle, and improves the ride quality. General Motors still mounts them inboard. Not dead sure why they do it. Another key thing you need to be aware of back here. We're talking about 11,000 pounds. You want to be able to stop that. You want to be able to stop that several times, and particularly on a long grade. And if you understand the job of brakes, taking motion and reducing it to heat, you can begin to appreciate how important it is that brakes get rid of heat. That's what disc brakes do so well. General Motors sticks with drum brakes. Now, drum brakes stop pretty good. The problem is they build up heat real fast. And as you can see, trapped in there, hard to get rid of. The only way to get disc brakes on a Silverado, you got to order their optional max tow package. I love that this is standard. You know, it may be the unsung heroes, but they are so critical into what Ford calls leadership. Boy, I love this hardware. Please, excuse my grammar, but I'm calling this segment When Parts Ain't Just Parts. We're looking at the front suspension system on the Ford F-150, and I can tell you there are no more critical design elements for components on a truck than right here. Now, a lot of people could look at this and misread it, and I'll show you in a second how Toyota did. The key elements here, upper control arm, which is tied into this massive support and spring perch. Then, of course, what they call the hub carrier or upright. Big responsibilities here. And then the lower control arm. This is what takes most of the impact mass and can have a big influence on handling. Now this is a case where the parts don't always add up to the sum of real well engineered. Case in point, this is the lower control arm off the Toyota Tundra. It is massive, and if you didn't really understand its responsibilities, this might look like the way to build it. The problem with that is, that's what they call high and unsprung weight. I won't get into the engineering of it, but it's important to lower the weight as best you can to help control wheel motion. When you've been building trucks for 60 years, you realize there's a better way to do it. Though it's more expensive, Ford uses cast aluminum. Now there's a bunch of advantages. A massive control arm, significantly lighter, and aluminum will eat or snub road noise and frequency. See how this starts to work? And by having a lower unsprung weight, improves handling. Now, we've all played the game of telephone sometimes in our life, and you know that by the time the message usually gets to the third or fourth person, it doesn't even resemble what was originally said. I gotta tell you, telephone went awry at Toyota. This is the upright or hub carrier for the Toyota Tundra. That's right, that thing's massive, this thing's spindly. I don't get it. See, when you're the leader in the truck market, you understand the importance of this component being durable. So, this is the F-150. You can see the difference in the approach. They overkilled the bottom parts, underkilled the middle parts, and totally missed the point. And here's an interesting detail. Trucks are expected to have massive wheels, big tires, and potentially go off-road. To make sure we support and carry that weight properly, 6 lugs. Toyota, 5. You know, for a company that's allegedly going to change the game, you might want to find out what game it is you're playing. We're at Ford Motor Company's Arizona Proving Grounds, and a piece of pavement they call Silver Creek. One of the baddest pieces of pavements, in my opinion, anywhere on planet Earth. Now we're here to do a direct head-to-head comparison of leaf springs. Oh, it doesn't sound glamorous, but when you understand what leaf springs do and what their world's like, you're going to have a whole newfound respect. See, leaf springs are the load tolerance to, guess what? Cargo and trailer, and they work hard. That was 25 miles an hour. Can you imagine how hard all that's working at 70? Oh, throw in a trailer and some cargo. Now this begs an interesting question. What kind of bolts are actually holding that rear suspension on? Well, to give you an idea, here's the bolt the Toyota Tundra uses. Looks pretty big until you understand how Ford leads the market with that bolt. I ask you, which bolt do you want holding on the rear suspension? Quite clearly, at Toyota, the spirit of truck has no meaning. Case in point, tires. Sounds odd, but consider this. Toyota doesn't even offer an LT tire option. LT, it stands for light truck. Now, Ford makes LT tire options available on several models of F-150. And for the buyer who intends to use the truck to its full capability, it means that Ford is offering them as an option a broader margin of safety and durability. See, at Ford, the spirit of truck has meaning, and they don't expect you to have to go to a tire store to find it. Before me, 2 cylinder heads. I call this applied technology. No, don't run for the door. This is going to matter. Let me show you why. This is a cylinder head off Ford's Triton 5.4 liter V8 out of the F-150. This cylinder head is off Chevrolet Silverado 6 liter. That's right, the bigger engine that costs $1,000 more. What's $1,000 buy you? 10 pound-feet more torque. Torque, now there's an interesting word. We use it a lot. What's it actually mean? Well, in terms of applied technology, what we're talking about is torque is what puts mass into motion. Let me give you an example. You're sitting at a stoplight. You've got the family boat on a trailer. You got, of course, the bed full of all kinds of cargo, and the family's on board. You're idling at about 750 RPM, and in a second, that light's about to turn green. And you know what you need now? Well, the second you touch that throttle, you need torque. And to make their engine more efficient, Ford has addressed this with applied technology. Let me give you an example. 2 intake valves as opposed to 1. What's that do? Well, that actually improves intake efficiency. Variable cam timing, which literally lets them control that torque delivery based on RPM. And in max torque loads, literally talking about the 5.4 coming to max torque 550 RPM sooner than the more expensive Chevrolet 6 liter engine. And of course, and this is the part the engineers would love for me to get into with you. And of course, it's other applied technologies like the length and the height of their intake runners, which have a big influence on torque delivery. or a thing called charge motion control valves. Not a glamorous term, but what a glamorous impact they have on technology. Literally, by controlling these valves, they swirl or more control the delivery of the combustion mixture. See, when we talk about applied technology, I'm not talking whistles and bells. I'm talking about value that changes or affects the way you drive your vehicle every day. The fluids you see in front of you are referred to in the wintertime as antifreeze, and interestingly enough in the summer as coolant. I refer to them as a fundamental indicator of just how much the manufacturer wants to help you protect your investment. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. When you drain the radiator on a 5.4 liter V8 F-150, you get nearly 21 quarts of coolant or antifreeze. Next to that sits what you get when you drain the radiator on the 4.7 liter V8 in the Toyota Tundra. As you can see, there's nearly a 50% advantage in extra protection that comes standard with your F-150. You tell me who cares most about you and your money. Well, I'm coming to you from underneath the alleged all-new 07 Chevrolet Silverado. And the reason I add this sarcastic catch on the end there is because all-new may be overused in this case. Now, we're about to have a dialogue that gearheads could turn into a half-hour conversation. I want to attempt to be more succinct than that, but make the point on why I'm upset that they have stuck with or refused to make the investment to really go to an all-new system up here, because there are better ways to disconnect the four-wheel drive system in the enhancement of fuel economy and durability. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Because Chevrolet has stuck with its old ways, its disconnect method, even though you're in two-wheel drive now, still leaves this half shaft, this U-joint, and this, one of the most complicated components in the vehicle, the constant velocity joint outboard of this axle, constantly rotating. What I mean is that virtually every inch of every mile that this vehicle goes down the road still has all these systems rotating. Now, I gotta have a hunch that most physics experts would instantly figure out that hurts fuel economy. This is called driveline friction loss. It's not good news. And it comes at an interesting contradiction when they're talking about how advanced they think their system is for killing cylinders to improve fuel economy in a steady state environment. Why then do they continue to let all this stuff rotate? Perhaps that's not why they're getting the results they were hoping for. That said, what's it do for durability? Here's a system with a very sophisticated component in it that they let continue to rotate even though it's not making a contribution to traction in the front end. You know, if you want to talk about all new as it applies to a vehicle, let me show you what the current system thinking is if you do make the investment. Okay, let's talk about an investment technology that actually benefits you, the customer, not the manufacturer. What I'm talking about here is when you use Ford's shift-on-the-fly 4x4 system and put it back into the two-wheel drive mode, you instantly disconnect this U-joint, this half shaft, and really importantly, this constant velocity joint, which improves fuel economy and long-term durability. And I might add, protecting these joints is worth doing. What's it look like out of the vehicle? Well, this is that same system right here in my hand. Now, mounted to the hub area, the wheel area, is this little device right here. This is the actual unit that does the disconnect. Hence, this rotates, the wheel rotates, these components no longer do. That's a lot of torque mass you want out of the way. See, that's what puts me off when Chevrolet calls itself the all-new 07 Chevrolet Silverado, because under the skin, it actually isn't all new. You've all heard the phrase, what goes up must come down. Couldn't be truer than talking about rear suspension systems. A lot of activity, a lot of responsibility back here. Think about it. This engineering and design is responsible for traction for stopping, for acceleration, certainly to handle the load variables of, well, a lot of weight in the box, certainly a lot of weight on the bumper, handling and ride quality, all affected by design right here. Now, when you start talking about best in class for cargo capacity at 3,050 pounds or best in class 11,000 pound towing capacity, and if you understand where all those loads ultimately rest, it's right here on this bearing surface. To make certain the durability is actually there, Ford uses a more expensive, what's called a roller bearing. What we're talking about is it's longer in its length and it helps distribute the load more evenly over the axle. Though it's less expensive and apparently very effective on small trucks, Toyota has stuck with the ball bearing, which pins those loads in a very small load area. I guess it worked on the little ones. I suspect they're hoping it works on the big one as well. I find it interesting how some companies choose to advertise their products. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. If you think back on Ford F-150 ads, it's always about the virtues of the vehicle. I mean, these guys have been building trucks for 90 years. They've been building the F-Series for 60, and they've had full-size leadership for 30 years. I guess when you're a follower, you got to use a different approach. Here's an example. Toyota's been advertising the new Tundra, and they've been comparing it against some, well, fictional truck, a truck that no one actually builds. And to make themselves look good in the course of those ads, well, they'd have you believe that this is the largest ring gear you can get in a full-size pickup truck. It is, in fact, 10.5 inches across. I'd like to point out to you, Toyota, that's the Ford F-150 ring gear. It, too, is 10.5 inches across. Oh, and it's been in the market for years. See, this ring gear is why they've got best-in-class capability for payload and best-in-class capability for towing. You know, Toyota, if you're going to compare against trucks, maybe you ought to compare against the leader and see how it goes. One of the hardest working components in a truck is the transmission, particularly under load, like towing. To help protect that investment, Ford takes the trans fluid and sends it forward to a trans oil cooler. This sits up near the radiator. GM does the same thing. Well, sort of. That's their trans cooler. This is Ford's. See, leadership really is in the details. Our next stop is structure, and this gets me going. And you know, it confuses a lot of my friends because they think of all the other glamorous things, the external things you could be talking about on a vehicle. But if you want a true litmus test of just how committed to leadership a manufacturer is, go under the skin. Structure really is glamorous if you understand what it gives you. And you got to love these Ford guys. You just mentioned going under the skin with their trucks. They can't wait to cut the body off to show you what they've got underneath. Let me give you a perfect example. See that nice smooth hood? Who'd have ever thought that much structure was right underneath of it? And that structure pays big dividends. Makes the interior of the vehicle quieter. The solidarity adds to its long-term durability. Nice stuff. Oh, and then inside the fender area, and I'm sure a lot of people are going, this just isn't glamorous. Oh, hang around. This huge structure in here becomes very glamorous in short order. And even doors, which appear to be so simple from the outside, there's a lot going on structurally if you're committed to leadership. Now, what's the big disappointment about for me? In this case, the 07 Chevrolet Silverado. Here's an all-new truck. Here's a missed opportunity to come right to the top of the game with a new vehicle, and yet Chevrolet chose to pass. Let me tell you what's going on here. As you look through that lens, you're seeing this fender and obviously a lot more what appears to be painted structure on the inside. Problem with it? That's not actually what's going on there. Oh, it's a lot of fender. The problem is if you remove the fender, there is no structure. And this is troubling to me because when we talk about missed opportunity, we know that today's trucks play hard, work hard, and are expected to handle well and last a long time. Oh, and the owners would like them quiet as well. Well, we've learned from motor racing that by tightening this area up, by adding structure and making this more rigid, we can make the vehicle handle better. We know that lowers squeak and rattle. Frankly, it's great for durability, and should the day come where you crash it, that structure is there to work for you. Now, we know the 07 F-150 has a 5.5 crash safety rating, but beyond that, why I like this structure is just what it does for the vehicle overall. And should you think this is a trite commitment, listen to that mass. This mass is built in, not bolted on, but actually welded right into the body and goes all the way forward and mounts to the front of the frame. It triangulates or stiffens the front of the frame for more predictable, more precise handling. It lowers squeak and rattle because things can't move around. Obviously adds to durability because things are now stronger. And in the end, should you crash it, literally has the built-in programmed intelligence to actually control the rate of decel and actually self-sacrifice. And ultimately, should it start to get back into here, literally decide where these kinetic masses are going to go around the occupants of the vehicle. That's a commitment to leadership. Now, I guess there's a more succinct way to talk about this litmus test. When it comes to leadership, either put up or shut up. This is about structure, and I've really given a lot of thought of how to put that in the proper context. It occurred to me about an art museum. You know, there are the originals hanging, and in front of just about all of them, you got what, 3, 4, maybe 5 art students trying to copy that, trying to copy the original. And to be perfectly honest, from 50 feet away, when those students get done, darn it, those two things don't look pretty similar. But when you get up close, you rapidly begin to appreciate why the original is the original. We kind of have a similar situation here. It's about structure, and I realize this is buried pretty deep under the skin, and boy, at 50 feet away, is it critical? You bet it's critical, because structure plays a key role in the final, if you will, crash rating. Case in point, Ford F-150, 5-star, 5-star passenger and driver for frontal crash impact. Toyota, 4-star, 4-star. And I think structure has an awful lot to do with that. Let's talk about structure and how you can use it to not only make a vehicle good every day, but in that critical moment should you crash it. See, this additional strength up here, this additional structure makes the vehicle handle better, makes it quieter, certainly enhances its durability. But where this really goes to work and where you can begin to appreciate the engineering of the original, notice this front, what is referred to in the industry as a shotgun, basically because of its shape. But notice how interesting it's been designed, that it actually has fold points in it. See, as kinetic masses or energy are coming into the vehicle, it is the job, the responsibility of this structure to help eat those kinetic masses and to slow the impact forces heading into the passenger compartment. Let me show you what Toyota came up with. In using a structure that's half as thick in terms of material, and certainly way different in total design and size, you can see what happens here. Much smaller here, thinner in material overall, and doesn't end up in the same large box section. Now, does that get you down the road? Yeah, that'll get you down the road. But in a critical moment, all of a sudden having the original really begins to matter. You compound that engineering and tie it to the fact that you've got Ford's personal safety system, which quite frankly is as comprehensive as anything in the market today. And it makes you wonder where Toyota gets off thinking it's changing it all. Truth is, it sounds to me like they're just playing with it all. For the last several years, Ford's been talking to you about quiet steel. Interesting process. It literally laminates two pieces of steel together, and it builds a very quiet panel. So how do they use that technology to your benefit? Well, we've cut out the front bulkheads of both an F-150 and a Chevrolet Silverado. Now, to give you an example, the engine sits here. You sit here. In the interest of making the interior quiet, Ford uses quiet steel in this whole panel. The difference? That's Ford. That's Chevrolet Silverado. Back to back. See, Ford feels that just because their engine's up here working hard doesn't mean you need to suffer with it in there. I'm sorry, Chevrolet. I don't think this word rugged means what you think it means. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Ford talks about being Ford tough, and they put their money where their mouth is. Case in point, the front bumper on a pickup truck. Ought to be strong, don't you think? To ensure that, solid steel stamping across all the way in the front in one piece on every F-150 you buy. Well, for Chevrolet, apparently means something else because their metal part of their bumper is, well, nearly half as thin and maybe this is GM's idea of rugged. A vinyl bumper. Very, very effective, I'm told. Trust me, insult adds to injury here. Rugged? We were able to unfasten one of the three pieces that makes up this Chevy's front bumper. You know, I guess when these guys say commercial grade, they mean TV commercial grade. You know, at Ford, one of the key aspects of truck leadership is defined by attention to hidden details. Toyota has a different philosophy. Just keep the details well hidden. Let me give you an example. Believe it or not, underneath the front of this new Tundra, there actually are tow hooks. You just got to get down on your hands and knees to access them. And you're not exactly rewarded for the journey. See, the tow hook on the Tundra is sizably smaller than that of the F-150. Now, another key issue, by having it so far back, it puts the bumper at risk by either the tow chain or a tow rope damaging the bumper. And on the topic of bumpers, when Ford says built Ford tough, they're talking about bumpers that are 25% thicker than that on the Tundra. And in terms of hidden details, well, sometimes maybe they shouldn't remain hidden. Case in point, look at the tow hooks on the front of the F-150. They're where you can get to. See, hidden details aren't in the brochure. They're in the truck, and that's where Ford pays attention. What follows is critical if you're a real truck person. It's a direct comparison of the cargo boxes. And let's be honest, half of a pickup is defined by this body area. So let's talk about it. What does Ford do to make their box more functional? Well, how about making the sidewalls taller than any other pickup truck in the market? 22 inches from top of rail to the floor of the box. Box specifics. For a Super Crew, 2 different boxes available. Only one in market. 5.5 or 6.5 if you need the longer or more standard box. Every box is bigger in terms of volume. On the short bed version, 2.3 cubic feet more cargo capacity than that of the Chevrolet Silverado. On the standard, 4.8 more cubic feet of cargo volume for Ford over Chevrolet. And on the long box, at 8 feet, 5.8 cubic feet more volume than Chevrolet. And where's Chevrolet's flare side? Oh, I can handle that for you. They don't have one. Now, another key area in the design of functionality. Notice that every one of these things are laid out as a 2-tier system for stack loading. Very effective, particularly for hauling lumber. And every 150 comes standard with cap rails. Not an option. Comes standard with tailgate lock. Not an option. And standard with tailgate assist, which they were the first to bring to market in the first place. Now let's compare side-by-side 8-foot payloads. Super Cab 4x4, Chevrolet versus Ford. Extended cab. Ford carries 776 pounds more in terms of cargo capacity in sheer weight. Think about it. It's one thing to talk about how big something might be. Okay, Ford beats them there, but it carries more mass as well. And you start putting sheetrock in here, that's going to be important weight. Super Cab 4x2, Ford versus Chevy. Guess what? Almost 1,013 pounds more capacity in the Ford than that on the Chevrolet Silverado. Regular cab 4x4, Ford versus Chevrolet Silverado. 850 pounds more. Are you starting to see where the real value story here? How about F-150 regular cab 4x2 versus Chevrolet Silverado? 1,238 pounds. Again, think about concrete, think about sheetrock, think about cinder block. All of a sudden, the functionality really starts to become apparent. Truck for truck, pound for pound, cubic foot against cubic foot, Chevrolet claims to be an all-new truck, but they're still doing things the same old ways and coming up short for it. You know, sometimes leadership's about the art of being subtle, or what I call the hidden value. Let me give you a perfect example. In 2004, Ford introduced on the F-150 what they call tailgate assist, the ability to operate the tailgate with one hand. Now, if this wasn't a cutaway, that will probably remain kind of a mystery to you. But because it's opened up, I get to show you the torsion bar that actually does the hard work for you. Well, finally, Chevrolet for 07 decided that's a pretty darn good idea. And if you want to give them nearly $100 extra as an option, they'll make it available to you as well. Standard on the Ford, optional on the Chevrolet. The value story doesn't stop there. Ford knows how proud the owners are of their F-150s. So to better protect their investment, they come standard with cap rails to keep them from getting scratched up. Does a darn good job. You notice the Chevrolet doesn't have them, nor do they even make them available as an option. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to figure out what dragging pipe or wheel barrels or even chain over this tailgate inside rail would actually do. Gotta tell you, the art of value is not always in what's in the advertising. Sometimes it's just built into the product. Well, welcome to the interior of the all-new Chevrolet Silverado. And what I like to refer to as a clear case of less is not more. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Ford versus Chevy. Got a center console. Where's the shifter in the center console that is on the Ford as they stick with their 50s and 60s design? Ford has 2 inches more windshield. What's that buy you? Well, 2 inches more headroom for getting in. Ford has available a grab handle on the driver's A-pillar. Chevrolet does not have it. Ford has cargo pockets for storage on the rear doors. Chevrolet does not have it. Ford has available HVAC controls right here on the steering wheel. Chevrolet doesn't have it. Ford has available AC vents for the rear area in the center console. Chevrolet does not have it. Ford has large bolsters to make you more comfortable in lateral support. Chevrolet doesn't have it. Ford comes with keypads for an entry system on the driver's door. Chevrolet doesn't have it. On all of Ford's cab designs, guess what? 4 doors no matter what cab you buy. Chevrolet doesn't have it. Chevy brags about having 2 different interiors. I can't even have enough fingers to count the number of different interior combinations that you can get on an F-150. Bottom line is, Ford makes more shoulder space available in all 3 of its cab designs over the Chevrolet Silverado. Ford offers a DVD-based navigation system that actually calls out the streets. I guess Chevy just wants you to take along your mother-in-law. She'll be telling you how to get there anyway. You know, if you look in here and just see an interior, you're not a trucker. But if you look in here and see that this is a living space, you begin to appreciate why less is not more. Well, welcome to the interior of the Toyota Tundra Double Cab. You know, appearances like this can be very subjective, so I'm going to try and be careful here. I am, however, going to loan my support to the media who has criticized this interior as attractive but belonging in a car. You know, there is a very difficult line to walk for designers to come up with an interior that is truck-esque, has a spirit of truck, but still has a luxury and appeal that the truck buyer is looking for today. I'll agree with the media that says that all 3 American truck manufacturers have nailed it, and that in particular the F-150 is the bar that everyone's trying to catch for interior design. But let's get clinical for a minute. You know, the first thing you'll notice when you get in this front row is that it has, well, less hip room than that of the F-150. In fact, both Super Crew and Super Cab have more hip room than does the Tundra. And let's talk second row for a second. Pretty important in these larger cabs. Both Super Crew and Super Cab F-150 have more head, shoulder, and hip room. Tundra offers but 2 interiors. Now, in a market that likes a lot of selection, that's a missed bar. To give you an idea, F-150 has 7 different interiors. Oh, and talk about choices. Tundra has 3 choice models. Ford has 5 models, plus King Ranch and Harley Davidson. In total, Tundra comes to market with 31 cab, box, and model choices. Sounds pretty target-rich until you understand to really get to the truck market, F-150 has better than double that at 64 different combinations. F-150's maximum payload specs for virtually every cab and cargo box configuration surpass that of max payload capacity of every matching model of Tundra. Interior details, missed it here as well. Case in point, no optional keypad entry system, no optional power pedals, no availability of an overhead rail storage system, and the audio system, and this is unusual for Toyota, works well, but the bass actually brings out rattles and vibrations in the door panels. In fact, at certain volume levels, that actually makes it unlistenable. Boy, I'm shocked about that one. Should also point out to you, with regard to functionality, virtually every cab of an F-150 comes with 4 doors, and that includes even the regular cab. Mechanically, F-150 offers 4 sizes of fuel tanks. You know, at first I thought that was a click overkill. We get a lot of emails at Drivers Talk where people say, you know what, I like having a gas tank size choice. Tundra has but 1. F-150 offers 12 different wheel designs from 17 to 22 inches in diameter. Tundra offers 5, 18, and 20 inch only, and you won't find, and I know this is subtle, but it's attention to detail, you won't find a spare tire lock back there ever. That said, never forget the substantial difference in prices at base price. F-150 costs thousands less for the base truck, and Super Cab and Super Crew still lead in value. I guess I'd have to close with the following thought. You know, Toyota, if you really understood the truck market, you'd know these buyers demand selection. They want to personalize their vehicles. First effort, first attempt, okay, you still got a lot to learn. Okay, now it's time to pull it all together. You've been in the lab, you've been in the shop, now let's come out here in the real world. To do that, we've come to Ford Motor Company's Arizona Proving Grounds. We also went out and bought 3 fresh trucks right off dealers' lots: Chevrolet Silverado, Toyota Tundra, and Ford F-150. We've done the lab, we've done the shop, now we do the real world. Oh, by the way, we're gonna have some fun doing this too. We started this frame comparison in the lab. Now we brought you to what engineers refer to as the twist stitch. It makes a great measure of how the frame and suspension are likely to work together. It's Ford's assumption that anyone who buys a truck might actually like to use it like one. And to that end, that could easily include recreation. And if your recreation is off-roading, we decided to set up a scenario for you that, quite frankly, is easy to have happen. See, Mother Nature plays hardball. To that end, we took all three of these trucks, drove one wheel, the right fronts, over an 18-inch ledge into a sand wash. It leaned each of these trucks over 10 degrees. Now you're saying to yourself, okay, I understand that. That could happen. Makes a great comparison on frame stiffness. You paid for frame. Let's see if you got some. We added green tape to the tailgate here of the Toyota Tundra. I'd like you to compare that line to the green tape that we compared on the cab. Do you see the distortion I'm talking about? Where's the beef? Notice that the tailgate line is not parallel to that of the cab line. What you're literally seeing is the frame bending or twisting. It's a direct reflection of lack of frame strength. And bear in mind, this is only on a 10-degree angle. They actually have the courage to call their frame Tri-Tech. They ought to call it Tri-Flex. Chevrolet Silverado, certainly better, but not what you're after. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Again, green line added to the tailgate. Compare that to the green line added to the cab. Do you see the distortion? Now let me show you what leadership looks like. Ford F-150, fully boxed hydroform frame, one of the strongest in the business. What's it buy you? A truck that can tolerate this kind of use. Okay, let's compare all three. We'll start with Tundra. Notice the difference in spacing between the cab line and the tailgate line. Notice that the distance is greater on the left. That reflects bend or twist. Weak frame. Chevrolet Silverado, though less, still happening. Their frame is certainly better than it used to be, but they're not at top of game. Now, Ford F-150. Note that the lines are completely parallel, and again, this truck sits at the same exact angle as the other two. Do you begin to see why they are, in fact, number one? At Twist Ditch, you had an opportunity to see what we call suspension travel extremes. It makes a great static comparison of just how far the suspension will fall and how much the chassis may twist. But now what we need to see is how will those two work together in the real world. In this next series of tests, although relatively low speed, the bumps or frequency is fairly close together. And what happens next is compelling evidence. Well, this is the infamous Silver Creek, and there's not much about its personality you would like. Unless, of course, you're an engineer. What a great place to test for frame and suspension strength. We brought the Ford F-150, the Chevrolet Silverado, and the Toyota Tundra to Silver Creek for a shootout. What to watch for? Wheel action, of course body action, and how the tires actually contact the ground. Now with a weaker frame, you're going to see not only the wheels in the air more, you're going to see the box, the cargo box itself, bending more. You can see the truck's moving around quite a bit. Obviously, this is not an easy life right here. Rear springs, rear shocks working very hard. And you can see the frame twist just by watching the bumper. Again, we'll go to the side. Lots of wheel action. With regard to the gas door, I guess that's an automatic on the Chevy now. Toyota Tundra, the truck that's changing it all. Right. Again, watch the wheel action. Okay, there you go. If you could put that to music, I think you'd have a pretty interesting square dance. That's not supposed to be happening. And this from a truck company that claims it went outboard like Ford on its shocks, but clearly couldn't control its overly sprung trucks. Oh, pay attention to see where the body's banging against the cargo box. That's actually not supposed to happen, Toyota. This is what it looks like when it's done right. Again, this is not an easy gig. But it's a great way to really find out how strong and how integral the workings of both the shocks, springs, and frame are. From behind, notice the tires spend a great deal more time on the ground. Notice the bumper isn't dancing all over the front end. The cargo box to cab relationship remains very constant despite driving on a half mile of brutal road. Okay, that test is admittedly brutal, but what a great way to find out right now how well a chassis and suspension are going to work together in the real world. The speeds are 25, 26 miles an hour. In the real world, you know the highway speeds are much higher than that. So we need to know now, is the truck really built tough? Do you see why now Ford F-150 is the leader? You tell me if you can think of one truck on this planet that wouldn't be improved by having the F-150's frame, or having the F-150 suspension system, or its capability, or its durability, or its lineup and selection. Everything about this truck gives it leadership. 30 years, in fact. That's what we call leadership. On behalf of everyone associated with this program, I thank you for your time together. We wish you open roads and safe motoring. I'm Rick Titus. This is going to be fun. Hi, I'm Rick Titus, the host of Drivers Talk Radio, and welcome to Super Duty Teardown. That's right, we're taking them all the way down. Oh, not just the Ford, we're going to take the Dodge and the Chevy as well. We want you to get an inside look of what these trucks are really all about. Let me give you just one little example of where we're headed. I hold in my hand what is, well, unglamorously referred to as a leaf spring bolt. I know that doesn't sound important, but this little piece right here, or in this case this large piece, actually holds the rear suspension off the truck. I mention that because it's so much larger on the Ford than it is on the Dodge and Chevy. We're going to show you some innovation the competition doesn't have as well. How about this? A stowable bed extender. Literally folds out of the way or can be flipped over depending on how you need to configure your bed. And boy, do I love this one. A tailgate step. This makes life a whole lot easier when working with your trucks. And that's what these trucks are about, aren't they? Working? Well, you won't think so when you see what the competition builds. Here's an interesting piece of innovation. It has kind of a funny name. It's referred to as a piezo injector. Almost looks like a surgical instrument, doesn't it? This thing represents a lot of advanced technology. Technology that, quite frankly, benefits you, the owner and driver. And talking about benefiting the owner-driver, here's one you're going to love. And talk about leading innovation and the use of technology. You know those nice chilly mornings when you jump on your leather seats in the middle of your truck and you're wishing it was warm instantly? Guess what? Ford's addressed that. 08 Super Duty has a thing called Rapid Heater. This thing gets the interior warm in a very big hurry. Really neat stuff. That's right, we're going to go in and make those kind of discoveries, and of course we're going to give you an honest look of what Chevrolet's been doing with their truck as well. When we get done here, I think you're going to understand why Toby Keith calls this thing the Big Dog Daddy, because that's what it's all about. So please, join me. Okay, let's talk candidly about engines. Now, at this level, these trucks are expected to work, and I suspect a lot of people believe that all you have to do is just add more power. If it were only that easy. This is why other people do it in different ways. This is the Power Stroke 6.4 liter diesel. This is a big engine, and it is all about power, but it has other responsibilities. It needs to be efficient, it needs to be tailpipe clean, and it needs to have drivability, and we're going to touch on each one of those. Now, in World War II, the big way to make power is to take an engine and add a big, huge turbocharger to it. Take a lot of atmosphere, compress it into those cylinders, and make big power. Well, with an airplane, you're going generally one speed. That turns out not to be true with a car. We need drivability. So Ford comes up with a different approach. They go with what they call a dual sequential turbos. And it gets trickier yet. Not only do they use two, and I'll tell you in a second why, they actually make one of them electronically variable. We'll get into it. Nick, Dave, if I could I get you to take that off of there for me, please? Now, I would do this, folks, but it'd be showing off, and, you know, that would be good for one take. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that very much. This is the mechanism that sits on top of the engine, and this is really a process of evolution. Here's what I'm talking about. We know that you can make big power with a turbo. The problem is it destroys the drivability. I mean, if life was always about being on the open highway and towing at one speed, you'd be golden. Problem is, life's not like that. So to add drivability, there's a small one and a big one. The small one spools up very quickly. That gets rid of what we call throttle lag. And to make it even more efficient, Ford has actually made it electronically controllable. They can actually change the physical size of its volume electronically. That then feeds the second and big one. So you're sitting at a stoplight, you're fully loaded up, it turns green, you tip into the throttle or pick the gas pedal up, boom, you've got drivability right now. That was one of the big part of the process of making this engine not only powerful, but efficient and drivable as well. On the topic of efficient, and another delta they wanted to accomplish, they wanted it to be quiet as well. So they came up with a piezo, hard to say, funny name, but boy, sophisticated part, piezo fuel injector. See, when you deal with diesel fuel, it's much thicker than gasoline, and the trick to fuel delivery is the atomization. How can you mist it in there? So this thing literally makes up to 5 mists per cycle. Very, very powerful stuff and very efficient. The other key to this thing, it's buried down deep inside the block, so it's quieter as well, and I'll demonstrate that in a bit. But every time you make power, you gain other challenges, and there's other ways to make it happen. Case in point, okay, we know a turbo adds power. We know the 2 turbos improves drivability. We've also learned that if you cool the fuel and cool the air that the engine's actually inhaling, it gets even more powerful and more efficient and cleaner at the tailpipe as well. Now, you make more power, you make more heat, and durability is certainly important to this customer. So Ford has tested over 600 engines and nearly 10 million miles of durability deltas to make sure this engine's strong. This water pump, 50% larger than last time. 50%. The volume of the water this thing moves is monstrous. Huge impeller, big water or coolant going through the engine, and to support long-term durability there, guess what? This is the actual shaft inside of that motor. This thing is stout and a huge bearing to carry the load. Okay, now you made that power. Wonder where all that power is going. We got it to the pistons. Uh-oh, now we got to get it to the bottom end of the engine because that's what's going to get it to the rear wheels. Well, that kind of load can be huge. For long-term durability, well, this is the bearing half that comes out of the Dodge engine. As you can see, it's a 2-bolt system, and the bearings for these cranks would be right inside of here. Frankly, pretty small. Chevrolet stepped it up significantly. It's not only larger, they use 4 bolts to control it. They want the stability of that being in there. And that's good stuff. I see the marked improvement. But let's take evolution a real rapid step forward. Why don't we just go ahead and go with a bed plate? Put all the bearings in one big, huge, monstrous surface and gain a lot of control over what happens on the bottom part of the engine. That's why I said 10 million miles of durability. So if we know our goals are better fuel efficiency, certainly cleaner tailpipe emissions, enhanced drivability, and ultimately a quieter motor, how about another little perk? How about one that will start at minus 20 degrees? Something diesels aren't exactly famous for. Next time you're in a restaurant drive-thru and you can talk into the speaker and actually be heard, think about just how quiet that engine actually is. Oh, then throw in the power and efficiencies. That's a winning combination. Fortunately at Ford, built Ford tough just doesn't mean tough looking. It means you can actually use the truck to work. Now, if you option their trucks up with what they refer to as a PTO, an optional power takeoff unit, we've got an additional water pump driving off of this one, you can actually run a myriad of accessories. And the way you make that PTO work best, well, you have it on high idle, which is also part of the programming. Now, you also get these upfitter switches. You combine those 2 options together, you've got a truck designed to go to work for you. Now, that said, a lot of manufacturers seem to think that when you were going to do that, you'd probably do it for 15 minutes at a time. That's not Ford's approach. They believe you've got to be able to take that truck out in the field or wherever you're headed with it and make it high idle like that all day long and drive the accessories you need to drive. I mention this because there's a real difference in philosophy on how you protect that truck or help it remain durable. Give an example, radiators. If you're going to ask that motor to work that hard all day long, you want to make sure it runs cool. This is a radiator of the Dodge, and frankly it looks pretty large, but it's surprisingly thin. And their water pump is surprisingly small as well. Heck, I've had car water pumps in my hand that were larger than this. Chevrolet, though they went smaller in overall surface area, did go slightly thicker, and their water pump is in fact slightly larger. That's got to be an improvement. But in the end, if you're serious about rigging the truck to actually work, well, you want the largest radiator you can get, you like it nice and thick, and you want a water pump designed to push fluid through it to protect that truck all day long. You know, in the end, if you're serious about working with your truck, then you need a serious truck. And frankly, that's what Super Duty is all about. Now, I understand that new technology is all good. But you know, I sort of miss when you have a 4x4, pushing levers and pulling gears and engaging hubs. Man, those days are history. On that Super Duty that comes with 4x4, guess what? You get shift on the fly. The ability to just hit a little lever, boom, you're in 4x4. I don't know, where's the drama? They do have one manual thing left. They have the availability of a manual hub override system, so you can get out and at least neutralize those 2 hubs. Sometimes it's just getting too simple, don't you think? All right, it doesn't get any less glamorous than being under here, but boy, if you're a frame, and that's what that is, or if you're a suspension component or a power component, this is where you live. And it's here, though you rarely ever see it, that your money really goes to work for you. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. Let's take capability on first. People who buy these vehicles expect them to work. And to do that, wouldn't you like to have the best in the game? Well, guess what? At payload, 6,120 pounds, best in class. Conventional towing. You want to put a trailer back there? 16,000 pounds. Oh, that too happens to be best in class. You're a fifth wheel tower? Man, you want capability, do you not? Boy, this new F450, this pickup truck, 24,500 pounds, that too being best in class. In fact, while we're on the topic of best in class, how about the gross combined weight rating? For Super Duty, 33,000 pounds. That's what you call building a vehicle that's fully capable. Let's talk about versatility. You know, I don't think any two customers use these trucks identical or need them packaged the same way. And to that end, Super Duty gives you a wide range of wheelbases, so you too can decide how you want to set your truck up. And details like thinking that the owners may want to put different equipment on the front of the vehicles. They pre-drill for mounting for any kind of equipment up front, up to and including snow plows. Important touch. Other key things. Bear in mind, everyone loves to brag about all the torque and their four-wheel drive capability and the power they've got. Well, all that puts effort in the frame. I showed you earlier how much bigger all the suspension components are and how hard this stuff works. All of that affects the life of the frame. You want it well built. Well, I got to tell you, in terms of protection, you know, for the longest time, frames in this segment were actually what they called waxed. Oh, it had a black color to it, but it was a coating that was slimy and messy to work on. That doesn't normally affect you, but what does affect you is the possibility of actually scraping some of that wax off, and now you've given up your rust protection. No longer true on Super Duty pickup trucks. That frame rail is now E-coated, so the protection staying with the frame. Yeah, this isn't, well, the most glamorous place to be, and it's probably like buying a book and comparing the bindings, but I'll tell you, your money's well spent here. See, at this level, this isn't just a truck, this is a Ford Super Duty truck. Well, our journey under the skin takes us even deeper yet into what I like to refer to as key components. Now, you might disagree with me, but we're talking about the components that actually keep the, well, wheels attached to the truck. So pretty darn important stuff. We'll start with what's referred to as an upright or a hub carrier. This is the one off the Dodge. Its principal responsibility is to hold the bearing, the brakes, and of course the wheels attached to the vehicle. So it works pretty hard for a living. This is the one again off the Dodge. And frankly looking very similar to it, a little bit different in its architecture and layout, but by weight and mass, this is the one off the GM product. Give you a sense of what the Chevrolet looks like. Well, just so you get a sense of how Ford approaches this topic, I mean, if you're going to have a 4x4, you're probably going to work that thing pretty hard. Hey, Dave, if we could, would you mind dragging that thing up here? Now, he handed this thing to me once and never mentioned the thing weighs more than what the average small home. This thing is serious. Folks, this is how Ford Motor Company approaches it on the Super Duty. Now, these are cute. I really think they are. But when you talk about the ability to go out there and work hard for years and years and years, this is how you build that key component. Now, so that you get a better sense of really how they approach this thing, another key component would be, well, the steering. See, this is the steering linkage off the Chevrolet. It's not bad looking stuff, bigger than you'd see on your average car. But I want to give you a sense again on Ford's philosophy. Hey, Dave, would you mind bringing the steering piece, please? Again, this is key linkage. This is what attaches to the wheel, so every time you move the steering wheel, they actually go the direction you point them. It would be a good habit if they kept that up. But of course. Now this thing I actually see two uses for. Steering your truck, and if you remove it in the mornings, you could go ahead and do 10, 15 reps of this thing and actually get stronger yourself. Your truck is strong, and now you're strong. Do you see what I'm saying here? The approach and the philosophy is completely different. Now, another major component on all of these issues is how you attach it to the vehicle itself, i.e. the lower control arm. Now, this is off a Dodge. This is off a Dodge 4x4 heavy-duty truck. You're kidding me. I've actually seen it off small import cars or larger. This is kind of sad. Chevrolet, I'll give them credit. They kind of came to the game a little bit more serious. That's their lower control arm. This is the thing that takes all the beating. This is the suspension component that when you drop it into a pothole, go over expansion trips, nick a curb, or go off-roading, this thing works real hard. Just so you understand how Ford approaches it, if you would, Dave, I'd love to have that lower control arm. See, this is cute. You got into ping pong, this could be your puppy. But if you're into playing hardball, this is what Ford calls a lower control arm. You kind of get a sense of the difference, don't you? I mean, that's the kind of thing that permeates their thinking all the way through these trucks. Yeah, you can do it like a big car, or you can be serious about being the leader in big trucks. Ford suspension engineers gave themselves a very big challenge. They wanted to take ride, handling, and stability to all new heights. To do it, they made significant changes to the rear suspension of Super Duty. They went 3 inches wide on the rear leaf spring, and they went longer. That enhanced the stability. The extra length actually improved the ride, and guess what? The way they mount that suspension gave them additional strength at the same time. Here's what I'm talking about. To mount that rear spring, which really is fundamentally the rear suspension of the truck, we find a difference in philosophies by all 3 different manufacturers. Here's what I'm talking about. These are the mounting bolts for the rear suspension system on the Dodge big truck. This is the bolt that's used on the rear suspension and leaf springs of the Chevrolet big truck. This is how Ford approaches it. See, everything about a Ford Super Duty is built Ford tough, and as you can see, its definition of the word significantly stiffer than that of the competition. Now let's talk about some payload capacities and specs. Here's what I'm talking about. If you're looking at an F-250, you're looking at cargo capacities of a little over 3,000 pounds. Above that, you should be looking at F-350, and frankly, that'll take you over 4,000 pounds, and if you go with a dual rear wheel setup, you can go to 5,700 pounds. Now here's where it's just kind of interesting on the F-350. Literally, you can spec an F-350 with single rear wheels, and it will actually meet or exceed some of its principal competition as they go all the way up to dualies. So pay attention to those combined gross vehicle weight ratings. Now, if you're going to carry the big loads, then you need the Champ, and the Champ, well, that's the F-450, and it'll carry 6,120 pounds back here. But it's one thing to talk about it. Let's go ahead and put this truck to work so you can see what it's all about. Americans love their pickup trucks. We use them for everything from recreation to transportation, and some of us even use them to work. Well, the second you ask them to work, you better be confident you bought the right truck. Let me give you an example. This F-450 is capable of towing 24,500 pounds. The second you hook that load up, you tell you what, Jack, you better be confident you bought the right truck. I mention that because at Drivers Talk Radio, we unfortunately do get emails from people who had their confidence shattered because they bought too small a truck to do too big a job. Well, confidence starts with power, and that's what we're going to walk through. We're going to talk about the kind of power it takes to take on a full load. We're going to talk about the cooling it takes to actually give you confidence that you're protecting that engine. We're going to talk about the confidence of the right transmission designed to do the job. Brakes. You talk about shattering your confidence. How about many trucks out there? They'll get the load going, they just can't stop it. And even confidence in steering feel and knowing what those front wheels are up to. And sadly, so many of the emails we get include the fact that what destroyed their confidence, what scared them, was how unstable the truck felt when they actually loaded it up. Stability is part of confidence. And vision. Sounds odd, but when you drive a truck as transportation, well, guess what? The information necessary to drive it as a work truck or for recreation changes the second you put a trailer on it. We're going to talk about that. And strength of components. You know, you're just running down the road by yourself, you don't think about the strength of nuts and bolts and key components in the vehicle. Confidence comes from knowing that that thing's been bolted together the right way. And ease of use, confidence comes from knowing that truck was designed to do the job you're asking it to. And we're going to get into that more later. But let's start with power. Super Duty offers 3 distinct power plants. They got the Triton 5.4 liter V8, a very, very strong V8 motor. My engine of choice, of course, on the gas line is the V10. It's a 3-valve, 6.8 liter, and a stunning engine. But if you're a diesel fan, then what I'm standing in front of is key. We're going to highlight the 6.4 liter Power Stroke diesel. This thing makes 650 foot-pounds of torque, and key to its drivability and efficiency is laying right here in front of me. This is the dual sequential turbos that comes on this motor as standard. Very precise fuel delivery, very good throttle response, and a bunch of torque right off the bottom of the tachometer. It's also the quietest Super Duty engine we've ever had. Now, When we talk about confidence, we talk about keeping that powertrain cool. And to do that, guess what? 6 coolers is offered on this package. 6 coolers. One for coolant and fluids, obviously. One for the air conditioner. Obviously, one that's now part of the intercooler, or what they call an air charge system. They're even cooling the fuel. That's how serious they're getting about it. And up to it, including cooling the transmission as well. Also, you want a water pump that's up to the task. This thing's a monster. In fact, this thing can power most household air conditioning systems. This thing's all about moving a lot of fluid through the system. Now, the transmission's the next thing in the line that really gets worked hard. And the good news here is the available torque shift trans. This is a 5-speed. It's got a much stronger torque converter. This thing will tolerate the loads, not only what this motor will make, but in the kind of weight you might put behind it. And I love the fact that it comes with a tow haul mode, which really helps in less gear hunting and is particularly useful for descending steep hills. Short of the IRS calling you at home, I can't think of anything to get your heart rate up quicker than brakes that aren't going to get the job done. You want to talk about confidence in towing, you want to know you can get that load whoa-hoed. Well, to get that done, Ford gives you these monstrous, fully vented disc brakes. Fully vented, so the heat gets out of here, and these things can be repeatable. Talking about stopping force, dual piston calipers designed to put a ton of clamping energy right here on this disc brake. They've also got an interesting accessory referred to as the integrated trailer brake controller. At first I thought that was a fancy name for something confusing. In the end, what a great option this is. This is slick stuff. Reach right over the dashboard and instantly you can start to bring on your trailer brakes to get the trailer back under control or stabilized. Neat stuff. On the topic of stabilizing, well, guess what? That's really a function of steering. Knowing what this steering is doing is critical. I love the feel it's in the wheel. And in terms of confidence of steering strength, that's the kind of steering links we're talking about. You compare that to the competition, you won't even want to drive them. This is the kind of thing that makes you know all the time what these front wheels are doing, both in braking and in turning. That's what towing confidence is all about. When it comes to towing confidence, information is your friend, and nothing will get you information faster or more accurately than a good range of mirrors. And Ford offers a full range of mirror options. My favorite, what they call Power Scope. This puppy's trick. I'm talking about from your seat right there, you can power it out, power it back, or power fold it. Now that's convenience. And in terms of visibility, it's a monster lens with a convex lens. This puppy is all about information. That's towing confidence. Stability under load has proven to be a bit of an Achilles heel for some trucks, and nothing will shatter your confidence quicker than when you start tracing your truck all over the road because it isn't stable. To handle that up, guess what? Ford uses 3-inch wide springs, longer in length overall to improve stability, and they're all mounted with monstrous hardware. The frame strength back here is similar to the frame strength up front, and in total, a frame designed to carry the load. By the way, it has attached to it an available 2.5-inch hitch receiver, so this thing's ready to tow. Now, where's all this load going? Well, it really works hard in this rear suspension, and to that end, big lugs to make sure the wheels stay attached. Monstrous axles to make sure they can handle the load, and of course a drive shaft designed to take all that power and torque and get it to these rear wheels. That's towing confidence. Real ease of use is often found in subtle but very important details. Details like a trailer plug-in that's both 7 and 4-pin capable, and the optional backup camera system that allows you to see exactly where you're going. All of these details working together to give you confidence in towing. If you're going to conventionally tow 12,500 pounds, then the F-250 is perfect. But if your needs require something more, well then you can confidently tow with the F-350 in the configuration I'm driving, 17,700 pounds. But if you need even more, guess what? This thing will pull 18.7 if you need it to. When the task requires that you tow a record-breaking 24,500 pounds, well there's only one tool that can do it. That's Ford's Super Duty F-450 pickup truck. And just so you know, that's what 24,500 pounds looks like. If you're new to pickup trucks at this level, you're going to be blown away at the selection. From cabs to powertrains to wheelbases and packaging, there's a lot to choose from. Even if you've been at this level for a while in trucking, you're going to be shocked how Ford has bumped the bar even further. They take quite seriously this notion of a truck for every job and purpose. Let me walk you through it real quickly. F-250, F-350, and Ford now makes an F-450, the only manufacturer making a truck at that package level for a pickup truck. 3 different cabs, regular cab, super cab, and crew cab. You've come to expect that. 2 different boxes, 6 3/4 or 8 foot, and of course available for either the dual or single wheel applications. 5 different wheelbases of pickup and a huge array of chassis cabs. Engine choices become critical here, and boy does Ford give you selection on that count. The new Power Stroke diesel at 650 foot-pounds of torque. That thing's job specific. The Triton V8, the 5.4 liter at 365 foot-pounds of torque, but best in class, the most powerful gas engine you can buy would be the 6.8 liter Triton, the V10, at 457 foot-pounds of torque. 2 different transmissions. Unlike Chevrolet, Ford does offer a 6-speed manual, but most of us will likely opt for the very sophisticated 5-speed torque shift Autotrans that has available PTO port. 4 different axle ratios, again that becomes very job specific, and as I mentioned earlier, both a single rear wheel or dual rear wheel applications. 4 different interior levels, and man, does that run a range. From XL, XLT, FX4, and Lariat. Add to that the availability of the stunning King Ranch and the very, very sharp Harley Davidson. In terms of innovation, man, talk about leading the game. Available tow command, tailgate step, which boy does that make life a lot easier, bed extender that's stowable, and of course rapid heat and the all-new reverse camera system. Yeah, if you want to come into this market and customize a truck specific to your purpose or your job, Ford's the one you need. You would assume that the cargo box of a pickup truck would receive the same engineering and construction detail as the rest of the vehicle. Well, guess what? When it comes to the direct competition of this vehicle, you might just be wrong. Let me give you some evidence. See this box rail molding? This is standard on a Super Duty. See, Ford understands you're going to use this for work, and to protect your investment and the appearance of your truck, they include that as part of the deal. The competition wants you to pay extra for it. Even the operation and versatility of the tailgate, which frankly works pretty hard for a living. The fact that they've got the class exclusive tailgate step, which frankly makes using this truck a whole lot easier. That's the kind of thought that went into this vehicle. The fact that both their short box and the long box carry more capacity than that of the Dodge or Chevrolet. And the one that really puts it over the top for me, well, how they even mount the box. Big differences. To give you an idea, that's the cargo box bolt off of the Dodge. That's the cargo box bolt off of the Chevrolet, and they don't even go through the frame. See, if you really engineer the box, that's the Ford Super Duty bolt. See the difference? And this one goes right into the frame. See, built Ford tough? Well, that means all of the truck, not just the front half or the brochure. One of my favorite parts about this journey is that for a short time, we get X-ray vision. What I'm talking about is the ability to take you under the skin and give you an insider's look into how each one of these manufacturers approach building their truck. Oh, everybody paints them slick, and they all come with a really good brochure. But when you get underneath all of that, how much or what was the approach that the manufacturer used in building their truck? To give an example, tailgates work very hard for a living. This is a tough job. We took the skin off this one so you could see inside the Dodge and find out, did they really put the engineering money and time and effort into building you a good sturdy tailgate? Now, if you didn't have one to compare against, this probably looks pretty adequate. It's got a cross brace of serious depth and of course one support bracket. Hang around, you're going to be surprised. Remember, everything heavy you pick up, boom, gets dropped on that tailgate and then slid into the cargo box. And on the way back out, same routine. These things need to be durable, at least as durable as the cargo box itself. Here's Chevrolet's approach. One cross brace, one bracket. Oh, and for $95 extra as an option, they will give you what they refer to as easy lift, though quite frankly, given how puny it is, it probably ought to be called the kind of easy lift, and they give you a key. I mention that because they come standard on every Super Duty Ford that you buy. You actually get one that's twice the size, so it really is a lift assist, and of course the key is standard as well. Oh, and 3 cross braces and additional bracketing inside to stiffen this thing up. Now, by having a stronger box, you're going to get more durability, and it's thicker as well. You also get the opportunity for more innovation and how you use that tailgate. Let me give you an example. Here's the optional, what they call storable bed extender, so you get more cargo space. And of course, what I love is this tailgate step that only includes this handrail to help you get up there and the ability to work in and out of the truck much easier. See, when you really look under the skin, you begin to understand why they've been the best-selling trucks for 30 years. Okay, we've talked about power and frame and tow and cargo, but when we start talking interior, well, that's sacred ground because everybody realizes this is where you live. Now, Ford's efforts to be quietest really pays off right now because this is where you're going to spend a lot of time. By the way, in terms of selection, we should talk about the fact that Ford has 4 interiors: XL, XLT, FX4, and Lariat. Now here's where the math gets a little fuzzy to me because they also have King Ranch and Harley Davidson. 6 to me, 4 to Ford, doesn't matter. Chevy's only got 2 and Dodge, not a lot of selection there. Let's talk about space because everyone wants to brag about what they can carry. Well, when you talk about carrying human beings in the biggest cabs each one of the competitors has, as well as Ford, guess what? They win on headroom, front and rear, and that's worth noting. Shoulder room, front and rear, and hip room, front and rear. I mention that with such emphasis because if you compare, you'll find out shortcuts got made in other competitor trucks. Now, other details, sometimes not so glamorous, but really affect living with the vehicle. I'm big on armrests. The ability to drive down the road and rest your elbows, very important. I've written lots of magazine stories where I picked on vehicles whose armrests and center consoles didn't match up, or you couldn't even reach it with your elbow in some models. Center console here taken very, very seriously. Not only comfortable to lean on, but frankly, even its design. First of all, designed to actually have hanging files in it and can even stow away, guess what, your laptop. It is about usability at this level. Of course, there are double door seals, in terms of packaging in the doors, very convenient. And the availability of the keyless entry system. By the way, that's an exclusive. And if you've ever had it, you're not going to buy a truck that doesn't have it. Now, on Lariat, I need to talk to you about the fact that they, in fact, have a dual zone HVAC, they refer to it, heat, vent, and AC system. Dual zone, and that's available with controls right here on the steering wheel. That's also available for the audio side as well. Standard audio input jack, that's the level you're playing the game at now. And of course, you want features like nav system available, satellite radio available, and big audio. Now, I'm not an audiophile, so big audio is the only way I know how to put this. But I'm talking the kind of power that can really vibrate the leather. To do that, you need 8 speakers and, of course, a subwoofer. Well, good news is Super Duty's got it. Oh, and the availability of a rear DVD system. Though as a driver, I got to tell you, I've never been able to fully appreciate that in the back seat, but they tell me it matters. And of course, this feature you're going to love. Now available, the new backup camera system really does make life a lot simpler in tight quarters. Yep, we love to talk about engines. I mean, that's the root of these trucks. And of course, everyone loves to talk about what they tow. But in the end, don't all of us really worry about what we can get to choose from here? Every once in a while, a feature comes along that you go, wow, why didn't somebody think of that a long time ago? Or better still, why don't even make it available? Well, the good news is on Super Duty, they have an option now referred to as rapid heat. It's a supplemental cab heater. What we're talking about is coming out to your truck on a very chilly morning and very rapidly bringing that cab to temperature. This is optional on the Power Stroke diesel. It's available in every cab from XL to Lariat to even including the King Ranch. This is a little feature, though you'll never get to see it, that's actually attached to the heater system that allows you to get your Tootsies warm real quickly. Now that's using your head. To achieve a quiet cabin, you have to use a lot of technology, a lot of engineering, and you have to make an investment in the quality of product you're building. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Behind the engine, but before the cabin area, is what they refer to as a bulkhead. This is the steel the competition uses to isolate you from your engine. This is the steel that Ford uses to isolate you from the engine. Let me show you where some of that investment pays off real quickly. To do it, we're going to use a super sensitive sound meter. To do that, David, if you come in, please. I'm going to wrap on this steel. We'll take a sound measurement of both pieces and compare. Again, this is the competition.
Super Duty competition reads 105.2 dB.
Here's Ford.
Super Duty quiet steel reads 93.9 dB.
You can hear the difference. 93.9 for Ford, 105.2 for the competition. If that comparison doesn't sound large enough to you, think about what sound does. It gets louder with every increment. Yeah, you got to invest to buy quiet. Apparently they tell me that before I even introduced myself in the front of this journey, I said under my breath, this was going to be fun. I hope it was for you, because it certainly was for me. I've thoroughly enjoyed introducing you to this all-new era of Super Duty pickup trucks. By way of reminder of the innovation and why Ford leads this segment by so much, the introduction of the all-new F450. This truck tows 24,500 pounds. That puppy's all about getting the job done. This new Power Stroke 6.4-liter diesel, 10 million miles of durability testing. Talk about drivability. This dual sequential turbo motor is not only quiet, but it has good pickup right off the bottom, and of course delivers that massive work torque that you need when you really need to get to work. It's talking about going to work. How about the most powerful gas engine you can get in a pickup truck today? That, of course, is Ford's 6.8-liter V10 gas motor. Best-in-class horsepower and torque. And remember, torque is critical at this level. The availability of tow command. This is really trick stuff. You got the tow haul mode. You've got the integrated trailer brake controller. Stunning stuff. And now these all-new Power Scope mirrors that power out, power back, and fold away. Still the only truck out there using quiet steel in its front bulkhead. Really dedicated to making the interior more quiet. Standard trailer hitch on every Super Duty. You'd think that'd be the norm across the market. It's not. Only Ford puts it on every Super Duty you buy. One of the toughest, most versatile frames that's ever been underneath a Super Duty. I love what this new chassis does for it. And now it's E-coated as opposed to waxed. More cargo volume. That's right. Their cargo box is bigger than anybody else's in this segment. And talk about big. How about the interior? More interior, well, hip room, shoulder room, and headroom in our cabs, even compared against that of the largest available from the competition. And of course, I want to remind you, Ford's F-Series pickup trucks have been the best-selling in segment for 30 years. Yeah, I have to agree with Toby Keith on this one. This really is the big dog daddy of Super Duty trucks. Thanks for being with us. Enjoy. Tough, and that's what 650 foot-pounds of torque sounds like. Now I know it seems like an odd place to start, but I wanted to tease you. What follows next, nobody else gets to see. Follow me. Hi, I'm Rick Titus, and I'm coming to you from inside Ford Motor Company's Louisville, Kentucky truck plant. We're here for what they call the beginning build of the 08 Super Duty. And what lies before me is the very backbone of that awesome truck. This is the frame. And some of you may have spotted it's actually on this tooling upside down. That's so they can put all the key components on relatively easy. You've also may have caught how shiny it is. That's a function of the all-new E-coating, which is really about corrosion protection. And if you're talking backbone, strength is what you're after. Remember, it comes down to strength, durability, and capability. That's the real inside story on Super Duty. Okay, it's starting to come together now. This is, of course, the Dana 60 monobeam front end for the 4x4 system. This is where the frame, despite still being upside down, really does start to look like a truck. It also gets pretty exciting at this point because you see how strong, how beefy everything is. I mean, that's not for playing around. That's one of the world's strongest four-wheel drive front ends right there. Yeah, it's right here you understand, I think, what Ford Tough really means. 75 years of building strong trucks has taught Ford Motor Company that tough is an ever-evolving process. For 08, 13-inch front brakes, stronger in frame, an E-coat to make sure it's protected against corrosion, and 8 more inches added to the leaf spring to improve on-lane and ride quality. See, at Ford, built Ford Tough is more than just a slogan. Well, this is a spot where Ford's elite team of engine installers plant the power, I mean the power, behind Super Duty. The engine you're looking at is the all-new 6.4-liter Power Stroke diesel. 2 turbos, intercooled, and I mean talking big power. How much? Easy. 350 horsepower and 650 of nothing but pure hard-working torque. Well, this is about our last opportunity to see the major components before the body and the bed go on. This, of course, is the 2-turbocharged Power Stroke diesel. This is Ford's famous Torque Shift 5-speed transmission, which is available to PTO and, of course, has tow-haul mode. You can see the particulate filter right here. That's the key to meeting these 08 emissions. Awesome job. Wanted to show you to give you an idea how serious this all is. Look at this exhaust system. It's all tied into that new particulate filter. This is just awesome, awesome stuff. While Super Duty frames are being mated to their suspension and driveline components, in a whole other section of the 6 million square foot facility, you see the body panels coming together. This is the final fit before they go into the welding fixture. Trust me, this is a little intimidating. I realize this rather intimidating fixture looks like something out of a science fiction movie, but it's actually referred to as a zero-error welding fixture. It has scanning lights, locating pins, and what they call net blocks to confirm the body fit within 1/10 of a millimeter. It plays a crucial role in why all the body seams and gaps and fit on a Super Duty are so accurate. It's also why they last for decades. Ford Tough is in the details. Case in point, new cooling module, 33% larger. It can idle for hours with a PTO unit going, and the serviceability, well, that doesn't have to be so tough, now does it? Quiet, like quality, has to be built in. Case in point, foam in the pillars, sound absorbers in the floor, quiet steel in the front bulkhead, and of course more attention to detail in how you exit the interior air. Yeah, for a lot of people that's their office, proving, you know what, to be tough, you don't have to be loud. It's not every day you get to see your office be built. Well, this is the bed drop, and as they like to say around here, if you're gonna run them long, then you better build them strong. And to that end, notice everyth's been painted underneath. Double wall construction, standard cap rail, and thank goodness tailgate assist is standard because that weighs 90 pounds. 8 monstrous bolts, a locking gate, and that's how you build Super Duties. There is nothing more uniquely American than Ford's Super Duty pickup truck. Thousands of parts, years of development, and assembled by skilled and dedicated work people right here at Ford Kentucky Truck Assembly Plant. From the very first turn of its key, it's ready to serve its owner for decades to come. Good job.